Right, so what else is there? So, right, the Patreon page. Oh, that hurt. The Patreon page was made and produced because we realised the funding wasn't going to meet this. Going back to what I was saying, the funding wasn't actually our capital. How do you put it? I said I was going to put X amount of money into the project. I said I was willing to invest £1,000 to get this thing going. When it started to go above that £1,000, I had to try and find other means to generate cash, and that's what we did the Patreon. Because I wasn't willing to do a GoFundMe until I had something to kind of show. So we did the Patreon to get people involved in the development. So, come and become a Patreon, see behind the scenes, see things being created, see the website before it was launched, see some of the artwork we've got in development, see some of the sound files for the website before it was launched, stuff like that. So basically you got to have a real big input in say your piece before things became finalised. And we plugged it, come please join a Patreon, we need your funding, we're at a stage now where we need X amount, just to keep us going, please help. And unfortunately the community didn't do what we expected. I thought we were going to get a few more Patreons than we did. And that's because I was naive. Patreon pages themselves are fantastic if you are able to give the audience something. So for example, if I was an artist and I was creating artwork, and then my patrons were seeing that artwork, and then I was able to give them lessons on how to paint the same way I do, or create that same art, or sell them the pieces or give them pieces and stuff like this. There's things that you can offer the community, and that's what Patreon is very good for, is that if you're a creative individual, you can give back. It's a bit of a struggle to get people to back your Patreon. You're not really giving them anything other than insight into something, or asking them to actually pay to come and help. It doesn't work as well as we hoped. Even I have seen other Patreon pages that have done that for this particular system we're trying to create. So I know I have some Patreons, and I'm incredibly thankful for them, because those Patreons have actually managed to get this project to this stage. Because at the moment we're up to like 1,600 spent, and the Patreons have managed to raise like $200 and something, which has meant it hasn't been such a bad sting for me. I'm willing to put a little bit more in, etc. So that's something that you kind of got to get on with, and once again accept that it's one of those things where to me it seems so easy and simple, and that it's not a lot that we're kind of asking, but at the same time I completely understand that actually it is. We're asking people to give money on a monthly basis, which is it's a difference between Netflix or paying for this. So I fully understand why it didn't get the amount of interest, just because of the way it was marketed, the content that was on it, and the cost of it. So the next thing we're going to do is the GoFundMe, and this is why this is an honest video. I'll tell you exactly how the GoFundMe is, or why it is. We're going to put a GoFundMe out there. We're going to probably look between, it's £3,000 basically, and then we're going to try and put stretch goals up to 5,000. And the reason why we're going to do that is there's costs coming up. So deposits on venues, paying for venues, costumes, props, the forum, advertisement, photo shoots, which will go into the advertisement, and other expenses that will come around. And I think that £3,000 will just about cover that if we are clever with our money. And I'll put a list on the GoFundMe exactly where all this money's going, etc., rough scale, because at the end of the day, I mean, we're going to negotiate these, we're going to try and look for the best price we can, and stuff like that. But basically, if we can't hit our target on GoFundMe, that's my pivot point. That's the point where I go, the project won't succeed, because I can't invest anymore, and If I can't get the funding there, how can I expect people to pay the kind of the fees we need to keep the game going and stuff like that? So it's at that point, if we're not successful, then we're kind of, we'll change the direction the project's going in. And that's when I said at the start about the geocaching. So what I will do is, after speaking to some very clever people the other night, the geocaching aspect of the game, and it will be completely different. It will no longer be around vampires, i.e. the White Wolf vampires, Vampire the Masquerade. It'll go completely different from that, and it will be more of a spooky walk puzzle thing in Southampton that you can sign up for and pay a small fee and then get access to it, and you go around and click on the QRC codes dotted around a city, and a story is built up, and it gets people interacting with the historical sites. So that was the idea. Hopefully we can still do that and just put it in with this game, but that's the pivot point. That's where I'm going to go if we don't get the backing. The other thing is support from the community. So some of the big things coming up that I'm going to desperately need help with is we're going to have an NPC crew, and I want the NPC crew to be fully trained up on the rules, and basically be invested in the characters that they're going to be creating, because the way we're advertising the NPC crew is that you will make 2 characters for each of the factions, and these are created by you, and these are your characters that you play at the courts if you're not playing one of the other NPCs. So you get to play both games, but there'll be some caveats on it, which is you're there, you have your characters' goals and agendas, and you'll be trying to achieve them, and you're there to help players or hinder players, but you're not there to kind of start stuff. You're there to and then you'll be assigned, or you create an NPC that will have a position in the court. So like the camera, you'll be like Seneschal, Harpy, Prince, something like that, and you'd be expected to play that, but those characters won't be in the court all night, and that's when you'd refer to your other ones. So you kind of get to play the game just with a little bit more direction, and leading up to that, you basically get to play through, as we're play testing, you get to play through the campaign that we're going to create, that will lead you up to the point where the game starts for everybody else. So I don't want to give any spoilers here, but you'll be answering the reasons why no vampires currently, no factions currently have control of the city. You'll play through some events that kind of explain that, but you only know that as an NPC. The players won't know it, but it means that you've got some background knowledge of the game. What else is there? You've also got the play by mail. So what will happen is you'll be assigned a clan. You create some NPCs in that clan, some of which will be notorious NPCs, and I say notorious, like famous ones from around the world, Justicar Gilles, Header, stuff like that, and you'll be kind of assigned them as well, and you'll be interacting with people on the forums using those characters. And once again, every single character you'll be using will have goals and agendas, and you will then gauge your conversations on, does this help me complete my goals, does this help me get to the end of this agenda, blah blah blah, do I like that person, do I not? So that's the NPC crew. It's going to be different. It's going to be something where you're going to be actually trained up on the rules, and you get to play some game before we start, be big on the play testing, be incredibly creative, because you get to make your NPCs. You're not just assigned one and said get on with it. We want you to be living, breathing characters that interact naturally within the environment, and it doesn't feel like an NPC's walked into the room. It feels like another player has, and that's what we're aiming for. So NPC crew is something that we're definitely looking at, and at the moment we're going to be looking for 12 people. So live game, 12 people as our NPC crew. International, we're looking at 10. So there will be 10 people that can take up this international role, which all that is that you're creating characters on the forums to interact with players, and that's how you play the game. You can also have some downtime stuff going on, but that kind of be done in the background. It's mainly the interacting on the forums. So if, for example, you've always wanted to play a character or something like that, someone famous from the history, then you can get the option to do that, and then portray them as you think they should be. So that's the international side of it. And then I say the live we've already gone over, and the 12 people for that will be doing that thing. So that's that. The other thing we were looking at is so the plot writing we kind of got covered with Fiverr, but we are still looking for plot writers. It is a lot we're asking because of the style of plot. If anybody's looked into it or not, for the live players are doing different style. So what they can do is, if you're playing a game and you want to get involved in plot outside of the politics that are happening at the court or the things that are happening in the world, you want to actually kind of go out there and see what's in the city and dive deeper. We have some plots that we're writing for that, and the idea behind them is that you go to one of our gossip points and you can pick up gossip of plot threads. You go to the hub location, as they're called, and that will then give you kind of the flavour of everything that's going on and other locations for you to investigate. You can then go and investigate those locations. All of this is done via downtime. And you can pick how you investigate. So you can go mental, social, physical. If you go for a physical investigation, it's more Lara Croft, it's Indiana Jones, it's more bypassing security, vaulting over the fence, going through the upstairs window, stuff like that. Then you've got the mental. So in this case, it's more Sherlock Holmes or forensic detective, or bypassing security by seeing how the cameras are moving and then kind of dart through. So and then from that you'll get descriptions based on that kind of way of doing it. And then you've got the social, which is it's Lucifer from, I think it is the TV show, it's called Lucifer, but very charismatic, very you're able to steer conversation in the direction you want, make people feel guilty, make people like you, etc, etc. So it's a social option. So you pick one of those three, and then you're given some pre-generated text that's gives you information. There'll be clues in there, and then when you've built up all of these clues, because you've gone to investigate each of these locations that you got from the hub in the manner that you want to investigate them, you get those clues, and then using those clues you figure out as a player where you think the last location is, and you just head there. So because all of our locations have asset codes assigned to them and stuff like that, you can say, I want to go to asset code X and I want to investigate this, and you just put down the plot asset code, and then we go, cool, you're at the right location, or we'll give you the splurge of what you find. Then whilst you're at that location, you can go through there'll be some questions you'll be asked, which are normally based on the clues you gathered. So let's say the door, it's a reinforced door, it's got a padlock on it, the padlock's got a number code on it. Earlier on in your investigation you picked up the code for the lock, you can then bypass that lock and then you can get to the next stage. So there'll be things like that. It's kind of, if you do skip the investigation phase and just blag it and get straight to the end, you may struggle to get to the final conclusion because you don't have the required items or information needed to get past. Get to the final location, and here's where it gets really interesting, because at this point you get to make a decision, a choice. They are going to be ones that were kind of they're not black and white, good and bad. They are conscience choices. So a vampire, taking a ritual book to gain more power isn't necessarily a bad thing at the loss of some life, if that's the way the vampire views things. But as I say, there will be moral choices or choices made at that point, and then that flips all the locations. So if anybody else is investigating it or comes across it, the location descriptions flip to represent your choice. So if you chose to save someone, then when you go to those locations, that person may be there, or people may be talking about it in a positive way. But if you chose to have someone, let someone die or something like that, and you go to locations, it'd be the opposite effect. So those plots are different, which is also the pain in the butt, because those plots need to be written out with each of those things I said have got. So when you describe an area, you've got to do the description of the area flipped in as many of the choices you give to the player at the end, and then you've got to give physical, mental, social descriptions of areas, and you've got to do this for all the ones you've got, and you've got to put clues in, you've got to be subtle, and so plot writing for it is a nightmare. And we accept that, I accept that. But that's what we're looking for, is plot writers for that. We've got guides and examples, so if anybody's interested in plot writing, we've got that.